Exposed, the incredible transformation of a lonely girl after a soldier and his K9 discovered her. Emma sat cross-legged under the gnarled branches of an ancient oak, her sketchbook spread open like a diary of unfulfilled dreams. It had been 6 months since her mother passed, a hollow wound that echoed through her soul as relentlessly as the ticking clock at home. School had become an unbearable gauntlet of whispers and stares, a place where her once vibrant spirit was reduced to a fading outline. The laughter of her classmates felt like shards of glass, reminding her of everything she'd lost, leaving her feeling like she was slowly disintegrating beneath their ridicule. Flipping through her mother's journals, filled with sketches and yearning for an artistic life, only deepened her sense of failure. Why can't I be like her? She thought, gnawing on a hem of her sleeve, drowning in self-doubt. Just a few blocks away, Jake wandered through the worn streets of his hometown, each building a remnant of more prosperous days. He had come back from deployment feeling unmoored, the noise of war echoing still in the confines of his mind. He struggled to find his purpose amidst the residual despair of his own journey until Max, his K9 companion, nudged him, sensing the emotional weight hanging heavy on both of them. They ambled into the park, where the simple rustle of leaves felt both comforting and unsettling, like an unfinished melody echoing in the air. It was there, beneath that same oak tree, that he saw her, Emma, so absorbed in her art that she seemed to glow in her own world. Her pencil danced across the page with fervor, yet an unmistakable cloud loomed above her. Jake hesitated. Did she even want to be disturbed? Would she scoff at the very idea of being mentored by a soldier, fresh from the battlefield? But something urged him forward, a cautious curiosity fueled by the innocence of her talent. "Hey, that's really good," he offered, voice unexpectedly gentle, his heart unexpectedly lighter. Emma's eyes flicked up, sparkles of curiosity racing to meet his, but it was quickly washed away by an undercurrent of uncertainty. I don't know what I'm doing," she confessed, her voice barely rising above the breeze. And just like that, the page between them folded into a conversation that could change everything. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks as Jake and Emma met, sharing stories of their lives that intertwined like the roots of the oak above them. In her sketches, Emma began to pour out layers of grief tangled with memories of her mom, an artist who had been courageous enough to share her voice until tragedy silenced it. But with each unveiling, Emma felt the pressure of her own identity closing in. Faced with the challenges of an upcoming competition, she suppressed the yearning to fully embrace the artist she could be, fearful of repeating her mother's story, a fight against societal skepticism that had bound them both. On the eve of the competition, she felt the weight of disbelief pressed upon her. Hand trembling, she clutched the sketches she had unearthed from the depths of her soul, every brushstroke reminding her that the echo of her mother's dreams lingered still. In the silence of her room, the storm of her thoughts clashed. Fear of failure battled with the glimmer of hope. Could she truly overcome the shadows of her mother's past? Would the committee even look beyond their prejudice? Her breath caught, tightening like a vice as she prepared for the confrontation that could either shatter her or finally break her free. The air thickened around her, prompting an urgent question: would her voice rise above the hatred and doubt, or would it drown in quiet discrimination once again? As the tension crescendoed within her, she realized she could no longer shield herself from the world outside. The time had come to stand and speak. The early morning sun filtered through the leaves above, illuminating patches of grass where Emma sat once again beneath the oak. Today was different. Today, she was on the cusp of confronting her insecurities with the daring strokes of her brush. She felt as if the whispers of doubt were fleeing, giving space to a burgeoning sense of purpose. Yet, the closer the competition loomed, the heavier the weight of expectation felt. In her heart, a clash raged. She could either cling to the safety of her familiar fears or rise to the possibility that had begun to stitch together the frayed edges of her spirit through Jake's encouraging words. Armed with a determination ignited by the potential of self-expression, she opened her sketchbook, preparing to pour her essence onto the page. Each line felt like a chance to breathe life into the void. What if they hate it? She whispered, the insecurity creeping back like an unwelcome shadow. Just then, the gentle nudging of Max broke her concentration. Jake stood behind him, his presence reassuring yet charged with anticipation. "You've worked too hard to let fear win," he said simply, his voice steady. The solidity of his belief buoyed Emma, but the remnants of her doubt felt like talons digging into her heart. As she glanced at her sketches, each a testament to her heartbreak, memories, and hidden aspirations, a flicker of resolve sparked within her. It dawned on her that her art was not merely an extension of grief, it was a narrative waiting to defy the preconceived notions that had clouded her world. Jake sensed the shift. "You know, sharing your work is an act of bravery," he said, his gaze unwavering. Emma nodded, though her heart rallied behind walls of uncertainty. What if they think I'm just copying my mom? What if they see me as merely an extension of her? She wrestled with the internal battle. Was she ready to carve her identity without being perpetually compared to the specters of the past? "Then you show them who you are," Jake replied, his tone a blend of challenge and encouragement. "Your voice and vision will emerge if you let them." The raw, simple truth in his words ignited a spark for Emma. It occurred to her then that her mother would not want her to wear her dreams as a shroud but as a banner, bold, resplendent, unapologetically unique. The next few hours melded into a flurry of frenzied creativity and consuming focus as Emma lost herself to her sketches. She felt liberated, the weight of her fears twisting into threads of inspiration. In a flash of vivid realization, she understood, her mother's legacy was not a cage, but a launching pad. With every stroke of color, she began to rewrite her own narrative, one that spoke to her truth. As dusk descended, painting the sky in hues of hope and new beginnings, Emma wrestled with her decision. Standing at the brink of her unveiling, she questioned if she had the fortitude to face the inevitable critique. Every ounce of apprehension seeped back into her. It was suffocating yet compelling. "Are you ready?" Jake's voice cut through the stillness, filled with a pragmatic support that she desperately needed. "Ready to let go of the past," Emma whispered, her voice wavering but resolute. As the night loomed ahead of her, she steadied a breath, but before she could answer, new doubts curled through her mind. What if the committee didn't simply dismiss her art, but her entire self? Would she still rise, or was she bound to fall? The air thickened once more, a pendulum swinging between hope and trepidation as Emma prepared for a confrontation that felt inevitable. Would she fully embrace her identity, or retreat once more into the shadows? All she knew was that the time had come to stand at the precipice of her truth. What awaited her beyond that edge, she could scarcely imagine. The nocturnal air was thick with anticipation as Emma sat on the edge of uncertainty. The silhouette of the oak stretched against the moonlight, a steadfast reminder of her own fragile resolve. With her heart pounding a rhythmic mantra in her ears, she wrestled with the thought of sharing her art, a notion that felt simultaneously freeing and terrifying. Had she truly poured herself into every stroke, or would her presentation crumble under the weight of expectation? Emma clenched her sketchbook, the corners now softened from her relentless grip. The mingling scent of damp earth and fresh paint brought her back to moments spent in solitude, where brushstrokes spilled secrets across the canvas. Yet today felt different. The canvas felt like a gate to a realm of acceptance as well as judgment. What if they laugh? She heard herself mutter, questioning her value in the eyes of critics who wouldn't see the depths of her reflection. Each possibility that loomed felt like a shadow that threatened to swallow her whole. But in stark contrast, she could hear Jake's voice resonating in her mind. "Your truth is your strength." She felt a flicker of defiance ignite within her. That moment of clarity, sharpened by Jake's unwavering belief, had changed her. With renewed determination, Emma opened to a fresh page, allowing herself to begin again. No longer was it about creeping doubts or comparisons, this was a moment of liberation. With each mark, Emma began to uncover layers of herself she had kept hidden under layers of self-doubt. She focused, blocking out the echoes of potential critique, and immersed herself in pure creation. It was as though the brush became an extension of her heartbeat, crafting a narrative that was uniquely hers and unblemished by the legacy of others. The hours slipped away unnoticed. Vivid colors spilled across the page, each hue an affirmation, each line a declaration. The process was both cathartic and exhilarating. She felt the chains of expectation loosening as new possibilities unfolded in front of her. Eventually, reality's weight crept back in. With dawn on the horizon, she glanced at the clock and felt an icy knot in her stomach. It was time to prepare for the unveiling. The anticipation had transformed from exhilarating to suffocating, and she questioned if she had deluded herself into thinking she was ready. She gathered her sketches and stood, bracing herself against the oak. The gravity of the moment had shifted, she was on the cusp of potential rejection or approval. There was no safety in anonymity now. Would the world see the girl behind the art? Could her work stand alone, untainted by her mother's legacy? With each breath, Emma faced her internal battleground. Part of her clung to the familiar embrace of fear, while another part yearned to break free. "This is me," she whispered to the remnants of her doubt. She raised her sketchbook to her chest, feeling the pulse of her identity against the page as the first glow of day began to filter through the branches. She couldn't afford to hold back any longer. With one more deep breath, a calculated step emerged from her indecision. She would embrace vulnerability, an act of courage that would either liberate her or threaten to undo her. As she made her way toward the venue that loomed ahead, Emma wondered if she could truly reveal her authentic self. Would vulnerability and the fear of judgment amplify her worth, or diminish it? The terrain ahead was unknown, and with every step, the struggle of self-acceptance loomed larger. And in that moment filled with contradictions, she made a silent vow to herself. The fear would not dictate her worth. The true battle lay not in the judgment she might face, but in her own acceptance of who she had become. Just as she reached the entrance, a sharp voice interrupted her thoughts, slicing through the ambient noise. "You think you can do this, don't you?" It was someone she didn't expect, someone from her past, a reminder of the very insecurities she aimed to overcome. Emma paused, her heart racing. Could she truly engage when a familiar foe lurked in the shadows? Emma's breath hitched as she recognized the voice, a sharp reminder of her past insecurities. It was Thomas, a classmate who had always been quick to mock others, especially those who dared to stand out. The cruel edge to his words twisted the knot in her stomach tighter. "What do you want?" She managed to respond, forcing her voice to sound steadier than her racing heart felt. Thomas stepped forward, hands shoved deep into his pockets, his smirk tinged with familiarity. "I just wanted to see how long it takes for you to realize you really shouldn't be doing this," he taunted, his gaze sweeping over the sketchbook she clutched like a lifeline. "Art? Your mom would be rolling in her grave if she saw how far you've fallen." Her heart dropped, the word striking far deeper than his casual cruelty. It wasn't just the memories of their school days that resurfaced, but also the weight of expectations she felt had been passed down from her late mother, a renowned artist herself. Emma felt her resolve teetering on the verge of collapse, a precarious balance between pride and vulnerability. "Maybe it's time to stop living in her shadow," Thomas said, his tone feigning sympathy. "You've got no talent. Just put that thing down and save yourself the embarrassment." Each word was an arrow, expertly aimed at her core. Emma felt icy fingers of doubt creep back in, but something within her, a flicker of that earlier defiance, fought to emerge. It wasn't enough to dismiss him, she had fought too hard to let someone like Thomas continue to chip away at her worth. "You're wrong," Emma said, her voice stronger than before. "I'm not here for anyone's approval, including yours. This isn't about living up to anyone's expectations. It's about expressing who I am. The transformation within her was subtle but undeniable. In this moment of confrontation, she was beginning to uncover a truth that went beyond the art. The fear of judgment was lightened by her willingness to stand her ground. As she held his gaze, a new clarity emerged, one rooted not in the idea of seeking validation but in the complex realm of self-acceptance she had begun to explore. Thomas narrowed his eyes, perhaps taken aback by her response. You think you're brave? You're just fooling yourself. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, Thomas. It's facing it. You wouldn't understand, Emma responded, surprising herself with her composure. The previous doubt that had threatened to engulf her was now fading into resolve. With each passing moment, the weight of his words seemed to lessen. She realized it was not Thomas who dictated her worth, it was her own understanding of herself, her art, and her journey. That understanding had been forged through countless hours of reflection and creation. And while his commentary stung, it was ultimately inconsequential to the path she was forging. Taking a moment to breathe, Emma adjusted her grip on the sketchbook. It no longer felt like a shield but rather a testament to her experience. She could feel its energy pulsing, a direct connection to the parts of herself she was learning to own. As she turned to walk into the venue, she threw one last glance over her shoulder. Goodbye, Thomas. I wish you the courage to find yourself one day. Stepping through the doors, Emma was greeted with a cacophony of chatter and laughter. It felt unlike anything she had experienced. The air buzzed with excitement and unfamiliar faces contemplated their surroundings, just as she was. Each heartbeat resonated with purpose and determination. The weight of Thomas's words lingered yet transformed into a canvas of motivation. She was here to unveil her truth, unrestrained from the constraints of the past. The light within her flickered brightly. The sudden urgency of her surroundings propelled her forward, a swift wave of chaos at the entrance amplifying both her excitement and anxiety. But Emma pressed on, anchored by the understanding that the real challenge began now. But just as she prepared to immerse herself in this defining moment, something on the stage caught her eye. An unexpected figure cloaked in familiarity that made her pulse quicken. Her heart raced as she wondered, what if this soul bore the power to shatter her newfound confidence or elevate it to heights she never imagined? Emma's heart raced as her eyes focused on the figure at the back of the stage. It was Samuel, someone she hadn't expected to see. He had been a comforting presence during her college years, offering her a listening ear and words of encouragement whenever she felt overwhelmed. Yet, she hadn't seen him since graduation. Seeing him now was both a source of comfort and an undeniable trigger of anxiety. As she moved deeper into the room, she grappled with a swirl of emotions. Part of her wanted to rush to him, to reconnect and find solace in the familiarity. But another part, a deeper part, felt a surge of uncertainty. What if he was disappointed with her too? What if he confirmed the unshakable doubts that had been instilled in her by people like Thomas? Emma's palms began to sweat as she approached the stage, half listening to the presenters. Her sketchbook, the embodiment of her artistic soul, felt heavy against her chest. Each step forward required a steely resolve she was still constructing. The familiarity of the venue, with its vibrant art canvases and scattered observers, echoed her internal struggle. She was supposed to feel liberated, and yet, the shadows of her insecurities loomed larger than ever. Just as she contemplated turning back, Samuel turned his head and caught her eye. A smile broke free across his face, wide and genuine, illuminating the dim space around him. It was like a lighthouse guiding her through a storm, and she felt the instinct to respond. Forcing herself to approach, she realized that she desperately needed this moment with him. "Emma," he called out, his voice warm and inviting. "I can't believe you're here. I hadn't heard anything from you in ages." "Yeah," she replied, her voice shaky but gaining steadiness as she spoke. "I was just trying to find myself, I guess." "That sounds about right." "Finding yourself isn't always easy," he said, chuckling lightly, which eased her tensed muscles just a little. But what you have in that sketchbook passion is a beautiful thing. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. For the first time in ages, she felt that flicker of belief reignite within her. What Thomas had said felt distant now, like a fading memory she could learn to ignore. Samuel's acknowledgement was empowering. It enveloped her in warmth, wrapping her insecurities like a protective cloak against the coldness she had felt only moments before. "I thought you'd be working in a gallery by now," he continued, shifting the conversation forward. "I always believed you'd make a mark in the art world." "I wasn't sure about that," she admitted, glancing at her sketchbook nervously. "I've been grappling with a lot of self-doubt. I didn't know if I could really follow through with it." Her confidence still wavered, felt as palpable as the sketches within her book. Samuel stepped closer, lowering his voice just above a whisper. "We all doubt ourselves sometimes, Emma. But you have this unique gift, one that needs to be seen. It would be a disservice to the world if you held back." His encouragement struck a chord within her, igniting her determination yet again. She could hear those words rebounding in her mind, amplifying the resolve she had just begun to cultivate. Perhaps she wasn't as alone in this journey as she had feared. Perhaps this time, she was ready to embrace who she truly was instead of hiding behind the opinions of others. As the conversation unfolded, Emma felt a renewed sense of purpose. She was no longer a girl lost in the shadows of her late mother's legacy or a victim of past taunts. She was an artist on a journey fraught with challenges but teeming with potential. But just as she began to believe in her newfound direction, Samuel pointed towards the stage, where an elderly gentleman was unveiling a project that eerily resembled her own concepts. Emma's pulse quickened again as she braced herself for what came next. Would this revelation lead her down a path of greater confidence, or would it drag her back into the depths of uncertainty? The elderly gentleman stepped aside, revealing a series of paintings that bore striking similarities to the concepts Emma had been toying with in her sketchbook for months. Each stroke and color choice felt like a reflection of her thoughts, yet crafted by someone else's hand. She felt the air in the room thicken, a suffocating cloak of doubt wrapping tightly around her. The vibrant colors that had excited her once now smelled of defeat. Emma's heart pounded as she tried to reconcile what was happening. The realization that someone else had brought her ideas to life, while she had frozen in the shadows, was a bitter shock. She glanced at Samuel, half expecting him to mirror her apprehension. Instead, he leaned in closer, fully engrossed in the elderly man's presentation, unaware or maybe unbothered by the turmoil rising within her. The exuberant crowd heaped praises on the artist as he spoke passionately about his work. "Art should not just be seen, it must resonate deeply with the feelings we all share," he declared, gesturing animatedly to the vivid landscapes that echoed Emma's abstract visions. How could she have been so timid, so paralyzed by fear when someone else was boldly stepping into the light? Questions swirled in her mind. Had he stolen her ideas? Or had she failed to be bold enough to bring them to life before him? Each question darkened her perspective, feeding the insecurities that had lined the edges of her consciousness for years. Emma clenched her sketchbook tighter, the very embodiment of her artistic aspirations. "Are those your ideas?" Samuel's voice broke through her spiraling panic, filled with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "They look similar to what you've been sketching." She forced a laugh, an awkward release of tension, but it fell flat in the air. "I thought I was original," Emma admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Now, I feel lost. Like there's no point anymore." The words crashed out of her, a confession that painfully hovered in the charged atmosphere between them. "Emma, you're not lost. This only means you're on the right track," Samuel countered. His encouragement felt like weight anchoring a bouncing balloon, designed to keep her grounded. Every artist pulls from inspiration, even if it's subconscious. The world is filled with shared ideas. What matters is how you choose to interpret them. You have your unique voice in how you express these visions. With Samuel's words resounding, a flicker of something ignited within her. Maybe this was a turning point, a call to action rather than an end. Her previous insecurities grappled with a new understanding. Rather than viewing this moment as failure, she could reshape it as motivation to create her own narrative. If she possessed the capability to draw inspiration from the world, then surely she could distill it uniquely into her art. "I want to share my perspective," Emma affirmed quietly, the spark or self-belief beginning to rekindle. "But how? Where do I even start?" "Start with what you're feeling right now," Samuel encouraged. "Channel this moment into your art. Don't let doubt erase what you have to say." As he spoke, Emma's eyes turned back to the stage, focusing on the elderly gentleman. An idea began to form. What if she introduced herself to him? What if she reached out, acknowledged their artistic similarities, and then began a conversation about her own work? A mix of fear and elation enveloped her as she considered the possibilities. Could this be the moment she finally stepped into her own light, rather than lingering in someone else's shadow? The weight of her choice loomed heavy, yet exhilarating. With renewed purpose, she took a breath, ready to confront her fears. But as she lifted her foot to move, an unexpected voice called her name. "Emma! Wait!" She turned just in time to see Samuel's expression shift, filled with alarm. Behind her, the elderly gentleman was walking down the stairs toward her, his eyes locked on hers. What did he want? Was this a moment of revelation or confrontation? Emma's heart raced again, and her journey stood on a precipice ready to tip either way. The elderly gentleman approached with a measured stride, his brow furrowed in deep contemplation. Each step caused Emma's pulse to quicken, an instinctual blend of anxiety and anticipation weaving through her. The crowd's ebullience faded into unresolved whispers around her, forming a cocoon of focus. "Emma," he said, his voice warm yet commanding. "I couldn't help but notice you studying my work." His gaze pierced her as if trying to untangle the knots of her thoughts. "What do you think?" Caught off guard, Emma felt the words stick in her throat. This was an artist she had admired, someone whose work mirrored her own thoughts. She wanted to retreat, to hide in her insecurities, yet something deeper compelled her to respond. I see so many similarities," she managed, her voice stronger than she felt. "It's as if you've captured the essence of what I've been trying to express." "Is that so?" He leaned slightly closer, tilting his head, intrigued. Whatever preconceived notion she held about the artist was shifting. He didn't appear dismissive, but rather engaged, hungry for dialogue. "I mean, not directly," she added quickly, fearing her transparency could be misjudged as ignorance. "I've been exploring similar themes in my sketches, but I've struggled to bring them to life." It felt liberating to admit her vulnerability aloud. "Art is often a collective consciousness," he replied, a glimmer of understanding reflecting in his sharp eyes. "Ideas evolve, shift with time, and sometimes it takes another's perspective to help us realize that what we create is only a fragment of a bigger picture. Each artist has their voice, and no two interpretations are the same. Tell me about your sketches." Encouraged by his genuine interest, Emma felt the breath she had been holding release. "They center around isolation and connection," she explained, finding courage in her words. "I often feel trapped between wanting to share my vision and the fear that it might not be heard or validated." The elderly gentleman nodded knowingly. "That fear can stifle creativity. But the very act of creating, even when it feels inadequate, holds power. Your journey is unique to you, and it's through that authenticity that your art will resonate. Don't shy away from it, embrace it." Emma's insides twisted with a mix of validation and fear. Was her voice truly significant enough to stand on its own? But what if no one sees it the way I intend? What if I fail to communicate that essence? "Failure is an illusion," he said, stepping back as if to give her a moment to digest his wisdom. "Every process of creation includes moments of doubt. It's part of unlocking your potential. Use that doubt as fuel, rather than an anchor. Perhaps you should think about showcasing your work in a way that's intimate. A small gathering, maybe?" She considered his advice, wrestling with the image of sharing her pieces. Until now, her art had been confined to the cover of that sketchbook, a private conversation with herself. But the thought of exposing others to her inner world was both terrifying and exhilarating. What if they don't understand? She breathed, the question no longer just a curiosity but a true concern. If they don't understand, then that's an opportunity to clarify your vision. Engage them, challenge them to see through your eyes, he said decisively. You owe it to yourself. Expand those boundaries you've set, step outside them. Emma's heart raced. Could she dare to venture beyond the confines of her fears? Every instinct screamed caution, but the potential for growth loomed tantalizingly close. With his encouragement, she envisioned a path illuminated by her own reflections, leading to a place where her voice could be freely expressed. Thank you, she said, the gratitude swelling within her. I needed to hear that. Then go. Create. Don't let anything hold you back. His final words rang in her ears as he moved away to mingle with the crowd once more. With every exchange etched in her memory, Emma realized this was a moment of metamorphosis. She had been handed not just an opportunity, but a challenge to redefine what her artistry could embody. The pulse of creativity surged within her. As she turned to Samuel, excitement gleamed in her eyes. I think I know what I need to do, she said, the resolution firming in her core. Start by sketching, show me your work, he urged, beaming. But as they made their way through the crowd, a sinking feeling pressed down on Emma's heart. There was one nagging question lingering: did she have the courage to present her truth and risk failure yet again, or would she remain in the shadow of her own potential? The crowd was parting, but the path forward felt both daunting and exhilarating. Standing on the brink of her artistic journey, Emma's determination was about to be tested in ways she never expected. Voices of doubt began to stir again, but she had a new mission: to face them head-on. What came next would shape not only her trajectory as an artist, but her very identity. With Samuel's encouraging smile at her side, Emma felt the familiar weight of uncertainty mingling with blossoming resolve. As they stepped away from the vibrant crowd, a soft hum of excitement buzzed around her like a distant reminder of a life she always wanted but never dared to reach for. Each heartbeat echoed her desire to step into the light of her own creation, yet nagging doubts clung tightly in the shadows. Let us find a quiet space, Samuel suggested, guiding her toward a secluded corner filled with lush greenery and soft sunlight filtering through the branches. This was the perfect enclave to foster her burgeoning ideas and away from prying eyes. Emma settled onto a low stone bench, her sketchbook resting awkwardly on her lap as if it were a heavy anchor tethering her to her fears. Now's the time to show me what you've been working on, he said, a hint of eagerness in his voice. Emma hesitated, her fingers tracing the worn edges of the sketchbook's cover. The multitude of unshared dreams skittered around her mind, aflame with potential yet overwhelmingly daunting. What if her sketches fell flat? What if they didn't resonate? Each consideration intensified the internal conflict. Desires collided with insecurities, forming a whirlwind of anxiety that paralyzed her. Okay, she finally whispered, her voice carrying an unsteady edge. She lifted the cover and turned to the first page, and suddenly the memories flooded back, long nights spent pouring her thoughts onto paper, cloaked in self-doubt yet invigorated by a yearning to express what simmered beneath her skin. Wow, Samuel murmured as he leaned in to take a look. The vibrant strokes and raw energy seemed to dissipate her fears momentarily, almost igniting the spark she needed to trust herself. Those are from a while ago, Emma shrugged, trying to downplay her own vibrant creations. I don't discredit yourself. His voice was firm, but there was warmth underscoring his words. These are moving. Look at the emotion you captured here. You just need to believe it's significant. He pointed to a sketch reflecting a solitary figure standing against a backdrop of departing waves, an embodiment of both struggle and resilience. I want to feel that significance, she admitted hoarsely. But every time I try to unleash it, I'm paralyzed by the fear of rejection. Then let that rejection fuel you instead, he said, his gaze intent and unwavering. It doesn't define who you are or what you create. Show your truth, Emma. Let your art tell your story. His words struck like lightning, quickening her pulse. A deep conviction began to take root in her heart. What if she transformed that fear? Instead of letting it hold her hostage, she could wield it as a sword, a shield bolstering her path forward. I could showcase these, she murmured, the thought almost unbelievable. But a small gathering? Like he suggested? Yes. Gather your work, create an intimate space where people can experience your art in a way that feels safe, he urged. Invite a handful of friends, ask for honest feedback. This could help you refine your voice. It's a beginning, not a final destination. Doubt clawed at her cautiously. The idea of sharing her imaginative soul still caused the inward tremors of anxiety. Would her friends understand? Would they appreciate the complex tapestry woven into each piece, or would they reduce it to mere brushstrokes and empty lines? Emma locked eyes with Samuel, the sincerity and encouragement shimmering in his gaze pierced through her uncertainty. What if I fail to convey what I want to say? Then you learn, you grow, and you try again, he replied, a reassuring smile unfurling across his face. This is the artist's journey, a cycle of risk, growth, and transformation. A wave of adrenaline surged through her. Perhaps failure wasn't the monster she envisioned. Perhaps it was merely the first step toward clarity, understanding, and mastery. With each passing moment of contemplation, the idea of vulnerability transformed from a choking fear into an exhilarating adventure. I can do this, she affirmatively whispered, her voice carrying newfound strength. I will do this. Absolutely. It's time to expose your truth, Emma. Samuel's enthusiasm mirrored the growing courage bubbling within her. But as her heart soared with the possibilities, the echo of lingering self-doubt loomed ominously in her mind. Would the truth she was about to present lead her to newfound freedom, or would it uncover buried inadequacies she wasn't ready to face? As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over their secluded spot, Emma felt both electrified and terrified. It was one thing to wish for transformation, it was another to actualize it. Taking a deep breath, she turned the page, ready to embark on her journey of exposure, each line representing not just art but the essence of who she was becoming. What awaited her beyond this threshold of authenticity felt both terrifying and exhilarating. Emma knew she stood on the cusp of a revelation that could redefine everything. Would she finally uncover the strength to battle her insecurities head-on, or would retreating into the shadows become her only option? The moment Emma returned home, the weight of her decision enveloped her like a heavy cloak. Thoughts flowed chaotically through her mind, each demanding attention: the venue for her gathering, the friends to invite, the anxiety spiraling as she replayed every potential response. She sank into her favorite chair, surrounded by the comforting clutter of her studio. The walls adorned with her sketches seemed to watch her, anticipating her next move. Tentatively, she opened her sketchbook again, its pages fluttering as if echoing her uncertainty. She studied the drawings, each one resonating with fragments of her soul, moments of joy and anguish, beauty and despair. They were undeniably hers, yet the prospect of sharing them felt like bearing her very essence to the world, an excruciating vulnerability that intimidated her. With a shaky breath, Emma picked up a pencil. Instead of analyzing her past work, she let herself engage in the moment, sketching with urgency. The pencil danced across the page, translating her swirling emotions into tangible forms. Each stroke became a cathartic release, her thoughts crystallizing into shapes and colors that reflected her evolving state of mind. For once, she felt as if she were in control, crafting her narrative from the chaos. Yet, each completed sketch awoke a new wave of fear. What if the gathering revealed her inadequacies instead of her identity? What if others viewed her art through a lens hardened by societal expectation, dismissing the depth she poured into every piece? She put the pencil down, overwhelmed by a suffocating sense of futility. Defeat hovered nearby, whispering deceitful truths. That night, the dream came again, encased in a nebulous fog of images and sounds. Emma stood in a vast gallery, surrounded by her artwork displayed prominently. People moved around her, some stopping to view, some whispering critiques that cut sharper than a knife. She tried to interject, to explain, but her words turned to vapors, evaporating before she could find the right ones. The suffocation closed in tighter, and she awoke trembling, the soft glow of dawn filtering through her window a jarring contrast to the bleakness of her dream. Visiting Samuel the next day was a decision born from necessity. They met at a quiet café, nestled between bustling streets. As she approached, determination battled with self-doubt, gripping her chest like a vice. "Hey, how did it go after we talked?" Samuel greeted her, his warm demeanor a balm against the relentless cold of her fears. Emma hesitated. "I did some sketches," but she hesitated, the words nearly lodged in her throat. "I'm terrified of sharing this part of myself." "It's okay to be scared. Remember what we talked about letting fear be your fuel?" He encouraged, his confidence tempting her to lean into her resolve. "I know," she sighed, wrestling with her internal chaos. "But seeing all that still feels like exposing a wound I've tended to in secret." "Let others see that wound, Emma. It shows strength, honesty." "You have no idea how many will connect with that," he replied. "Seek the truth through your art, and when you share, you'll find a part of yourself you didn't know existed." His words reverberated in her chest, igniting a flicker of hope amidst the darkness. Perhaps he was right, each drawing, each emotion was a testament to her journey. What if by unraveling her truths, she could inspire someone else to confront their own fears? The thought resonated, crafting a shifting panorama in her mind. "I'll do it. I'll gather friends. But I want it to be more than just feedback. I want to create a dialogue about art and vulnerability. Not just display and critique," Emma declared, the resolve within her growing as she spoke. "Perfect. That's your intent. An exploration of connections rather than judgments. Let us plan this together," Samuel smiled, brightening the dim corners of her heart. As they brainstormed openly, mapping out her gathering with fresh excitement, Emma felt a transformation brewing, a sense of purpose mingling with urgency. Excitement swelled within her, mingling with the lingering fear that dared to loom. She was stepping onto unfamiliar territory, and yet, for the first time, the sensation felt thrilling rather than suffocating. As the plans took shape, Emma's heart raced with anticipation. Would exploring art through a vulnerable lens bear the weight of expectations? Could it shape conversations that altered perceptions? Every step felt monumental, revealing depths she had long hidden from herself. Emma realized that this was just the beginning, a prelude to a much greater journey. She was about to find out who she could become once unshackled from her fears. But just when she felt ready to embrace the challenge, a new thought clawed at her insides. What if her plans reached ears unkind, unprepared for her truth? The door to her artistic evolution whispered with potential, shimmering with hope and fear intertwined. Would she be ready to confront not just the reactions of her friends but also the critical whispers that echoed within? Emma stepped into the gallery, her heart drumming with both trepidation and excitement. The air hummed with a symphony of anticipation, mingling with the soft strains of classical music that embraced everyone present. Friends and acquaintances gathered around her artwork, their laughter and dialogue blending into a chorus of life she had almost forgotten how to embrace. But amid the joyful chatter, Emma remained acutely aware of the weight of vulnerability pressing against her chest. Each canvas behind her was a snapshot of her journey, raw reflections of grief, resilience, and ultimately, a profound sense of self-discovery. With each brushstroke, she had dismantled the walls of solitude she had clung to for so long. This exhibit wasn't just for others, it was a pivotal declaration of her own transformation. As she made her way through the room, greeted by familiar smiles and inquisitive glances, Emma found her footing, scanning the faces of those she had invited, the friends who had seen her struggle, the colleagues who had walked alongside her in silence, the individuals who understood what it meant to expose oneself to critique. Emma. I love this piece. Julie exclaimed, pointing to a vibrant canvas depicting a figure standing defiantly against turbulent waves. The essence of resilience was palpable in the work, and Emma felt a rush of pride swell within her. Thank you, Julie, she said, her voice steady, bolstered by the warmth of genuine appreciation. This piece speaks to holding ground in the storms we all face. As conversation sparked around her art, Emma began to engage, explaining her inspiration, her hesitations, her reflections on the fear that had once paralyzed her. Financial burdens, past comparisons, and societal expectations all crept forward and faded into shadows as her friends shared their own vulnerabilities, echoing her sentiments in ways she never anticipated. Your work truly evokes emotion, Emma, a familiar voice chimed in. Samuel was by her side, pride in his gaze. You've turned your fears into a connection, not just a display. In that moment, something shifted within Emma. Gone were the apprehensions that had once whispered discouragement. Instead, she was faced with acceptance, understanding, and recognition. Here she was an artist in her own right, conquering spaces she had once deemed off-limits. The night progressed, and participants began engaging in dialogue about vulnerability in art and its capacity to evoke empathy. Emma animatedly listened as her friends connected over shared experiences, finding common ground with her work. Her past fears crumbled further as conversation flourished. For the first time, she saw her art become a vessel for not just her feelings but for the collective journey of those present. At the corner of the room, two people were examining her piece on isolation, discussing their personal stories of battling loneliness. Do you feel like this captures what we go through? One asked, and Emma's heart soared as she heard her intentions being recognized. I felt so alone when I created this, Emma said, her voice steady and confident as she joined the conversation. But I realized that even in isolation, there's still the potential for connection. As the evening began to dim, leaving behind the remnants of lingering laughter and conversations, Emma took a moment to process the incredible transformation she had undergone. The girl who once drowned in self-doubt now stood before a crowd, her voice strong, each word grounded in her truth. Before she left, Samuel pulled her aside. You did it, Emma. You leaned into vulnerability and turned it into a strength. This gathering was monumental, he said, admiration sparkling in his eyes. Emma inhaled deeply, aware of the distance she had traversed. I finally understand that sharing my art is not just about seeking approval, it's about opening a dialogue, a bridge to unity through vulnerability. With Samuel's encouragement and the success of the evening behind her, Emma felt a profound sense of achievement coil through her. She had defied not only the skepticism of others but also the relentless judgments she had placed upon herself. The shadows of her past had finally transformed into stepping stones towards her future. As she stepped out into the night, the intoxicating flavor of freedom filled her lungs, mingling with poignant excitement for the artistic path ahead of her. She was no longer just an artist in her mother's shadow, she had emerged as Emma, a creator in her own right, unbound by fear and nurtured through love and connection. This was not merely a culmination, it was a new beginning, a vast canvas awaiting her bold strokes. She departed that night against a backdrop of glowing stars, a reminder of her growth, her resilience, and her indefatigable spirit. Now, more than ever, her journey was a celebration of self-acceptance and the commitment to embrace her voice. Emma knew without a doubt that she had achieved something profound. She was ready to follow her aspirations, texture her narrative with authenticity, and embrace life as a powerful storyteller of her truth. As she walked forward, the universe had shifted, she was prepared to conquer each pushback, ready to transform fear into creation, and perhaps inspire others to do the same. This was her moment, her achievement, a promise not just spoken but actively lived. Now, dear fellow storytellers, take your own leap towards transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and help spread messages of hope and resilience. Comment your reactions and theories about this conclusion. We want to hear your thoughts. And don't hesitate, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful journey. You need to show your support because only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of uplifting this channel. Don't wait even one more second to share.